The church throughout the country is filled with faithful members who are serving in all sorts of positions. And guess what? They are illegal in this country. What are we going to do about them?
If we have experienced a change of heart, can ye feel so now?
Sentimiento tal cual al principio. Oh, hey, you're back. Welcome. If you're here and I have your attention, let's talk. So on this channel, I try not to get very political. In fact, I don't want to get very political, but there are certain things that are happening in our nation right now, the United States of America, that kind of bother me and kind of strike at the core of who I am as an immigrant. And I just felt the urge to kind of give my 2 cents to the issue. Now, as an immigrant myself, and one that has worked alongside with many other immigrants within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I fear that what's going on right now with ICE is affecting the Hispanic community and really the immigrant community greatly in a very negative way. This video is for anybody that is listening to me right now, but it is primarily targeted to my beloved community, the Latter-day Saints. I'm very well aware of the political leanings of the membership of the church, and I'm okay with that. On an individual level, I think I can be pretty conservative myself. I believe in the importance of law and order. I believe in the family of proclamation to the world. I do believe that is revelation, and it is 100% inspired. And overall, I think that if I were to vote, I wouldn't vote any more different than any other Latter-day Saint in this country, for the most part. But then there are the things that I don't agree with, that most Latter-day Saints seem to be aligned with. And one of those things that I cannot get on board with is the support that I see from many Latter-day Saints for this administration's use of ICE to enforce the current immigration laws. I'm not here to tell you that we should abolish ICE. In fact, I think that ICE as an organization can be used for good to catch the actual hardened illegal criminals that are in this country, the murderers, those that are actually selling drugs and so forth. And there have been very many instances in which you have gangs from outside of the country come to this country and actually establish some kind of base of operations, such as the case with MS-13 in New York.
Of the 42, 28 were transferred over to ICE.
They were members of the notorious MS-13, Trinitarius, and 18th Street gangs ranging in age from 18 to 50. They've been terrorizing Long Island for years.
They've engaged in illegal activity, including attempted murder, all kinds of felonies, including human trafficking of women and young girls.
However, in spite of the good that has been done in the past, it is very clear that at this time, this organization, ICE, is being used in unlawful ways. There is an increasing number of US citizens whose rights are being stripped away and who are now starting to walk around this country afraid of being stopped and frisked and sometimes even deported, even though they are American citizens. And the crazy part about it is that we actually already have had multiple cases of US citizens either being detained or even being deported to their country of origin, even though they themselves are not only citizens, but also war heroes.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported? Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Sejun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Madam Secretary, the man behind you, please stand up, sir. His name is Jim Brown from Troy, Missouri. He is a Navy combat veteran who served our country in the Gulf War. He's married to a woman named Donna, who came to our country legally. Because of you, Jim's wife Donna has been in prison for the last 4 months. She did not come here illegally.
Look, clearly there is an immigration problem in this country. I'm not going to deny that. However, the solution that is being presented or that is being implemented at the moment is clearly not working. And not only that it's not working, but it's also going against the values of this country, the United States of America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. And I'm extremely worried about this situation because now our very own people, even Latter-day Saints, are now targets to this misuse of power. Our own brothers and sisters within the faith. In case you guys didn't know this, the church throughout the country is filled with faithful members who are serving in all sorts of positions, from actual missionaries with a tag on their chest, to Relief Society presidents, to elders quorum presidents, to bishops, to patriarchs even, to you name it. And guess what? They are illegal in this country. That's right. We have hundreds and thousands of members of the church that are serving diligently and that are keeping their covenants within the United States that are illegal. I know this because I served along with them. During my mission, I actually had the privilege to work alongside some of these individuals, and at least two of my companions actually were in this weird phase in which they were not legal in this country and their opportunities were very limited. And so when they had to actually go on their mission, they had no choice but to actually serve within the United States. On top of that, I've actually seen bishops. I actually worked under bishops who don't have legal status, but they are bishops. They are the shepherds of the congregation. Like this is the thing. And apart from serving the church very diligently, they're also serving their communities very diligently, doing the jobs that nobody wants to do, like any other typical non-threatening immigrant family that is undocumented in this country. So with that said, I ask whoever's still watching this video, what are we gonna do about them? What is there to do about these faithful Latter-day Saints who are illegal in this country, but they are now in danger of being separated from their families due to the aggressive acts of this administration, due to the unlawful use of ICE in American streets everywhere around the country? And the crazy part about it is that some of these people that are our friends, are our neighbors, they came here when they were young, and even though they are illegal technically, they know nothing else. They're essentially American, only without the paperwork. The problem with this issue when it comes to politics, the way I see it, is that on the left, you have a lot of people that like to just point the finger and get on their high horse and take the moral high ground, but they have no solutions to the problem. They just keep saying, oh, this is bad and this is bad, give me a solution. But they don't put anything on the table. And on the right, on the political right, I understand that justice needs to be served, because you cannot just walk into this country illegally. That's just breaking the law. And what is the point of the law if it's being ignored? At the end of the day, at the core of the issue, when it comes to the political right, is that justice must be served, because mercy can't rob justice. I get that. But just because mercy cannot rob justice in this scenario in particular, does not mean that mercy has no place or cannot have a place. The question now is, how can we balance justice and mercy in this very complex issue? Luckily for us, we actually have a very special book called the Book of Mormon. And in this book, there's actually a solution that can satisfy both justice and mercy, particularly with the issue of immigration. So if you're familiar with this book, you must be then familiar with a people called the anti-Nephi-Lehites. Long story short, a group of Nephites went to the land of the Lamanites, their fierce, rivals, and they went to preach the gospel to them. For 8 long years, they labored and with no success. But then afterwards, through a series of miracles, they were able to convert many. And next thing you know, a bunch of Lamanites then became converted to the Lord, to the point that they themselves decided to call themselves anti-Nephi-Lehites, dropping the name Lamanite. Well, it turns out that many of the other brethren, the other Lamanites that did not convert, kind of got pissed off. And not only that, there were a bunch of other Nephites who dissented from their religion and from their people and from their culture, started to entice the other Lamanites that were not converted to the Lord into destroying their brethren. Well, these newly converted Christians, or anti-Nephi-Lehites, instead of them fighting against their brethren, they buried their weapons of war and allowed themselves to be slaughtered. In the process, the ones that were actually killing feel so bad that they themselves became converted to the Lord, and it became a whole thing, and the Spirit was, poured upon them, and, they became very righteous and so forth. But in spite of that, this kept going. The anti-Nephi-Lehites were constantly being harassed by these Nephite dissenters, and at the same time the other Lamanites. And so Ammon, who was the name of the main missionary, Nephi missionary that went to preach unto them, he was like, listen, we gotta do something about this. Right? This cannot continue. And so they came up with the plan. It's like, listen, we need to go to the Nephites and see if they can let us in, and see if they can protect us or protect you guys, because you've made an oath with God not to pick up weapons and defend yourselves. You just can't allow yourself to be killed, man. And so what ended up happening was that the anti-Nephi-Lehites agreed and so forth. And Ammon then went to the Nephites to see if his brethren can be accepted as refugees. Turns out that after much talk to the Nephites and so forth, they decided, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. You guys can come in, but under one condition. So in verse 24 of chapter 27 in the book of Alma, we read, "And now behold, this will we do unto our brethren, that they may inherit the land of Jershon, and we will guard them from their enemies with our armies, on condition that they will give us a portion of their substance to assist us, that we may maintain our armies." The lesson of the story is this: they accepted refugees, and they kept their covenants by helping those in need. Not only that mercy was served by allowing these refugees to go and come into the land of the Nephites, but also justice was served because they had to pay a tax in order for them to, feed their armies. Thus, we see that in this story, these Nephites were prudent enough to not only come up with a law that was both merciful and satisfied justice. Now, my question then is, why can't we do the same thing? Look, these laws that we have on the books, they're not some eternal law of the universe that cannot be unchanged. These laws can definitely be changed, and they can definitely be changed for the better. Why can't we do that? We can definitely keep to our American ideals of bringing in the poor and the hungry and the sick, everything that is stated in the Statue of Liberty, and at the same time serve justice. There's definitely room for both. We can do that. In fact, it's happened before. If I recall correctly, during the Reagan administration, something similar to that happened, in which Reagan allowed about millions of immigrants to that were illegal in this country, actually take a path towards citizenship. Why can't we do the same thing today? Now, I'm not just going to leave you with, hey, we should do something about it. I've thought about the issue, and I'm going to attempt to give you some solutions to the problem. One of the things that we can do is continue with DACA, or even make it better, to the point that those who are young, who came here when they were kids and so forth, had no say in the matter of crossing the border or anything like that, but studied within our own educational system and basically took upon themselves the identity of Americans and culture in every way, that they definitely should be allowed to be legal residents in efforts for them to become citizens. I don't see the problem with that. What's the problem? What are you going to do with them? They don't know. Many of them came when they were babies and little kids, and they don't know nothing about wherever they came from. Are you just going to place them in a country or in an environment that they know nothing about? That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that we can do. Definitely work with those that are in our country, that they are American in every way, but because they were in this situation when they were young, they cannot fully be granted citizenship. I'm not saying that it is impossible in this country to do so. It is, but it's very difficult. We should definitely make the process a lot easier. Here's another solution. Let those who are of illegal status come to us. There have been many families in this country that are here, that are undocumented, for their children are citizens. If you have children that are citizens and all those things, and you've been here for a while and whatever, let those people have a path towards citizenship. And punishment, I guess, or in order for us to satisfy justice, maybe we can make the time in order for them to apply for the citizenship longer. Right now it takes 5 years for anybody that comes here legally to wait to become citizen. Well, you can wait maybe 15 years or 20 years or something like that. Make them pay like twice as much simply because they didn't come here legally. And let me tell you, like my wife is also an immigrant. I had to bring her. I had to actually spend money. I had to do the paperwork and everything else. It isn't fair for somebody to just like cross the border and not go through the system. I don't think it's fair. However, at the same time, I understand that there are many families out there who, for whatever circumstances, whatever reasons, that's the path they took, and they've made a life for themselves in this country. And just because, you know, they came here differently than I did, it doesn't mean that they can't be good citizens, good productive citizens. And so it will be more merciful than what's going on right now because we don't have to separate families or anything like that. I think that's a better solution. Let me tell you, I've seen this world. It's not pretty. It's not easy to be an illegal immigrant in this country. Illegal immigrants are basically modern day slaves in the United States, in my opinion, because all they do is work, and they do it for very little money, and they're always watching their back to see if somebody is going to deport them. It's not a good lifestyle, but regardless, it's better than wherever they came from, who knows? Gang violence, extreme poverty, you name it. We're forgetting that many of these people, they're very conservative in nature. Like, they're very religious, they're very hardworking, they're very industrious. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly, and for the most part, that's what you see. I know this because when I was a missionary, but I work with a lot with people like that. I'm not saying that these have to be the solutions for these problems. I'm just spitting out ideas. And all I'm saying is that we can definitely come up with better ideas than what's going on right now. Y ahora este mensaje es para mi gente latina. Mira, yo no soy alguien que le gusta las políticas y nada de eso, pero yo creo que si tú eres latino y tú eres miembro de la iglesia y tú estás aquí en este país con papeles y todo eso, creo que es necesario que utilicemos nuestros recursos y decir algo, proteger a nuestros hermanos y hermanas que están aquí en este país ilegalmente, pero podemos decir algo, podemos hablar por ellos y ayudarlos de esa manera, aunque sea. Muchas personas dentro de la iglesia tienen esta mentalidad de que la ley se tiene que cumplir, y es verdad, it's true. Pero podemos tener también misericordia, y eso es lo que yo no estoy viendo. But I believe that can change. Well, that's all I got for today. I really hope that we can come up with a better solution, because this is clearly not working. And if you disagree with me, please comment down below. Let's talk about this, because this is a very serious issue that is affecting not just our community, but this nation as a whole. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you so much for stopping by. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and see you next time. God bless.
I immediately started telling him, like, I'm born and raised here, like, I'm a US citizen, and he did not care at all.